Do we know if Commissioner Tolu will be joining us this evening?
I believe that he had said that he was hoping to do so. So
Am I correct in assuming this is his area?
yes. Okay. Looks like we have a few more now that we've started it. We're a little bit, a couple more people. Why don't should we take another 3 minutes and then plan on, we can start at 6:40. We'll see if Commissioner Tolu is here by that point. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and start the meeting at that time.
That sounds like a good idea. It is 6:40, and so at this point in time, I will call the West Contra Costa Unified School District Outreach Meeting. It's not a regular meeting. We do not need a quorum. We do invite all commissioners to attend, but this is a time for our public outreach and public input session. So at this point in time, I will hand it over to Commissioner Tolu. Commissioner Tolu.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to the Area 4 Outreach meeting of the Redistricting Commission map. My name is James Tolu, and I'm a resident of Trustee Area 4. I have a child who goes to WCCUSD school, and this Redistricting Commission is charged with developing a map that will identify the 5 trustee areas used for WCCUSD trustee election from 2022 through 2030. Members of this Redistricting Commission applied to serve and were then selected from applications by retired United States District Court Judge Telton Henderson. What has the Commission done so far, and what will the Commission to do in the future? The Commission retained legal counsel, which is Mr. Peach, and a professional demographer, who is Dr. Collingwood, to advise the Commission on the process of developing a new trustee area map. And then the Redistricting Commission established a plan for public outreach. And tonight is the 4th out of 5 public outreach meetings that will take place before the Commission adopts a preliminary plan sometime in December. The Commission will hold 1 meeting in each of the 5 trustee areas. So the first one was in Pinole Valley High School. The second one in El Cerrito High School. The third one at Richmond High School. And now tonight at Contra Costa College, which is also same location with Middle College High School. And the next one on December 7 will be at Kennedy High School. The Redistricting Commission planned to adopt the preliminary plan on December 14. Then 3 additional public hearings prior to adoption of recommended plan on January 25th. And adoption of final districting plan on February 15, 2022, following public hearing on recommended plan before WCCUSD Board of Education. Why is public participation in the redistricting process crucial? Because it is key to ensuring that map best represents the interest of all district residents. So for example, last week, a parent of children at the WCCUSD school voiced a concern that in the previous election, she received a ballot that actually different from the area that her children goes to. So that's why this hearing is very important. So if community members has concern about the proposed map, this is the time to give feedback to us, so we can do our best to accommodate the concern. Now is the time for Dr. Collingwood to present the proposed map. Dr. Collingwood.
There we go. Okay. Wow. It's been a long day. So I don't have as much to present today just because this is the fourth one. So I just wanted to provide some updates on the process and what we're working on and what's new today. There were several great points raised last week that my team and I have been working on, but these things do take time to get right, and it's very complicated. So what I'm going to present today, in other words, the maps that we have seen in some of the discussions and bringing in attendance zones, that is still in the process of moving that direction. And so I'm hoping by next week, with the current maps, clean it up a little bit at the edges based on public outreach. And then we'll have 2 reports. One will be an attendance zone quasi community of interest district report, which we'll discuss and show quantitatively, and I'll walk you through what all that means, which, the share of different attendance zones that are split between districts and how big of a challenge, let's say challenge, that's going to become. So that is in the process. We're working that through and hoping to have that report. And then at the same time, another report that's considerably easier to generate is a compactness report. And that's a general idea of a full compact district is a circle, and deviations from that are, at least theoretically, from a traditional redistricting principle, not as good. And so we can look at the different compactness measures by district for the different plans. And hopefully that information will prove very useful to, say, a commissioner or another decision maker who kind of thinks they like, all else equal, they like 2 plans similarly. What would be the thing that would make them a little bit more comfortable with that decision? And a compactness report will tell us that. And then the other thing I wanted to update people on is the continued data collection process for producing racially polarized voting analysis. That will maybe be next week, or it might be a little bit after. That's a bit of a different process. I would say most demographers don't tend to produce those. It's more of a political scientist thing, but one reason you hired me is I kind of do both of these things. And so what that will tell us is to the extent that racially polarized voting is present in the district, specifically, since we don't have many elections to look at, what we would call in the trade an endogenous election, i.e. school district elections. I think my understanding is there's only been 1 round of elections. The report and the analysis is kind of restricted somewhat, but that may prove useful. My strong guess is there is racially polarized voting, but we don't know if there is. We'll have to test and examine that. And then number 2, sometimes there is racially polarized voting, but it's very hard to prove or demonstrate with the appropriate methods and data, where on the ground you say, yeah, I'm pretty sure there is, but you can't scientifically say that. So that will be nice. And so we'll bring in a couple additional, say, gubernatorial or down ballot contests that feature candidates of different racial and ethnic populations and overlay that onto the districts as well. So that's forthcoming. And then the main thing I wanted to highlight today are the population change by district and demographics. So I think this was Commissioner Hilliard, and I think Commissioner Lanzaretti had asked this at one point. And so I kind of dug around a little bit more and produced some tables. And so those are in Excel files available on the website, which will go there in a second. But a few caveats I want to make. So the 2020 numbers are what you see on the current set of plot maps, right? Those demographics. I've been able to produce them for population overall, not VAP or citizen voting age population. That data, the projections are not available. At least I haven't come across them. And so due to blocks changing and boundaries changing and things like that, both 2010 numbers are estimates. They're not the pure census counts. And then the 2030 obviously are projections based on kind of current growth trends and stuff like that. And they're projected out through the decade. So you have to be a little careful with those projections and those analyses, but I think it could be instructive. So that's what I wanted to go towards tonight. So if you go to the website here, again, the same setup that we have. And so, for example, if you click on map 1, you'll see here now there's this Excel file. You go ahead and download. It says demographic change. It's going to be the same for each one, but when you download it, it will say map1 change.xlsx. So if you have a folder that you use for this this project, obviously move it over there. You can tell I recently got out of the classroom, and so I'm speaking in a professorial way here. So please forgive me. You click on that, and then this will produce basically a table, and it's quite long. And so this is map 1 alternative. And so each line is a district. And so this would be the estimated Asian population in 2010, white population in 2010, Black population in 2010, Latino population in 2010, and Asian population in 2010. And then it goes through the 20s. So these numbers are the same of what you've been looking at. This is based off the 2020 census. And then here are some projections. So in a demographically changing dynamic area like this district, these numbers are quite significant and important to look at. And what's very obvious about this from a demographic standpoint is there's high foreign-born populations, large immigrant populations, specifically in San Pablo and Richmond areas. And so moving forward, part of some of those populations are going to be a little bit younger, very likely. And so pushing forward 10 years, those populations, specifically the Hispanic population, is going to grow. And then the projections you'll see over here is that we have a total projection, a change from 2020 to 2010. That's a % change. So for example, I haven't done this. You could do this if you're an Excel whiz. It gets a little bit nutty here with all of these data points. So I've just done the change demographic analysis, % change for 2020 minus 2010. And so, for example, District 3, which is the large Hispanic CVAP district, that population has grown. That's and then also District 2, which is from a CVAP perspective, the disproportionately larger African American district, although the Latino population is also quite large in that area as well. So these two areas are where the growth has come on this map. And then because these numbers are partly estimates moving forward, it still shows a growth rate in this District 3 area relative to others, but it's not as noticeable. So these have been produced for all of the different maps, and this is something that can prove useful if, for example, often when I work in various redistricting cases, people are interested in which populations are coming in and out, electability and things like that. In this case, electability is important, but of course, our main goal here is to draw fair maps. Nothing else really, right? Fair maps, and to ensure that we are getting maps that can elect candidates of choice for various groups. So this can be useful for you all as you're going through. And if you need some assistance producing these numbers, but for the different populations, just reach out to me. One thing to keep in mind with these kinds of projections, again, is that they are only projections, things can change. And the 2010 numbers are estimates as well. not just taken straight up from the census, and there's certain reasons why that's the case. And I'm happy to discuss any of those methodologies with anyone. So that's what's available now. You could go up to proposed map 2, look at that, look at those numbers. And so this should all line up, and you can download that as you go on about looking at the different maps and things like that. So that is what I have for now. And I'm happy to take any questions or seed the ground.
Thank you
Thank you,
for,
Dr. Cullen.
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Chair Gordon.
Yes, I didn't know if you were going to jump in there, Commissioner Tolu. So at this point in time, do we have, I just wanted to check in with Contra Costa College to see if we have any public at Contra Costa College.
None. We don't.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on from our Zoom meeting?
I see none.
And then I will turn it back over to you, Commissioner Tolu.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Dr. Collingwood. Now Chair Gordon already asked if there is public input, but so far we see nothing. So probably there is feedback from commissioners.
I just have one question for you, Dr. Collingwood. Thanks for putting together the numbers on projection, population changes, and demographic changes. I'm just curious from what you know about redistricting and the drawing of maps, both for school districts and in general. To what degree, if any, are projected changes in population or demographics taken into account or considered something that should be taken into account when drawing these maps?
So it's a very it's a very tough area. That's something that I look at, and I'll give you an example. So you might have a situation where a minority group is making a claim to a violation of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2. And so they can show that they can draw a majority minority seat. They can show that there's racially polarized voting. But under the current map as designed, they may not be able to show that, say, the majority group, often the white group, is blocking them from ascending office, because the old map is different than the new map. So it really happens right at this kind of context. There haven't been elections that have been run in this new map. And so what you may be able to do is reconstitute previous elections under the new map, i.e., you take the precincts that are in the new map, the voting precincts, and you take election results from previous contests featuring, say, a candidate of one race, a candidate of another race. And then you say, okay, given this election, who would have won? And it may be the case that it's extremely close. And if it's extremely close, then one argument that can be made to say that this is putting a community, a minority community's ability to elect candidates of choices at risk is that, say, for example, one minority population is actually declining. And in 5 years, in 8 years, while they were 51% of the district, they're going to be 47%. And so the argument's going to be, we need to draw that district a little bit higher to ensure that that community is able to elect the candidate of choice. Given the population trends here, you do have Black population decline relative to Hispanic population growth. But the issue here is going to be, you can't draw a 50% majority Black seat. So you can still draw a Black opportunity to elect seat. And given the history of my understanding, at least of contests in this area, there have been Black candidates that have been elected. So I think in this particular context, that challenge is likely more something that I would make, not in, me, if in another context, I would make in the context of the Hispanic population growth. Because there's not a whole lot more that you can do to expand the Black population in a voting age population in a given district, because the Latino population has grown significantly. And for other reasons, as we've talked about, there has been out district movement of certain demographics from this area out into other areas. So that's the kind of thing where you need to kind of think about a little bit. But given the circumstances here, I think it's something to use to weigh different plans against one another, and kind of have that demographic change component as one of the variables that you consider. And you're kind of making a little matrix of like, here's the things, pro, con. This should be something to consider as you're going about looking at these different maps. So that's my kind of general take.
Thanks. That's helpful. So the proposed maps you've drawn for us, is it accurate then that all the trustee areas, proposed trustee areas in the maps would either be majority Latino or majority white districts? There's not going to be any proposal, under no proposal will there be a majority Black?
That's correct. Yeah. So what you have in the kind of voting rights field, as it were, as that's just kind of a subfield of one of the things that I work on as an academic, this would be called like an ability to elect district. So variations on that exist. 30-35% is what you're kind of looking at there. You're not going to be able to draw a 50% plus Black voting age population district. And so kind of the challenge from only that perspective is, do we want to draw a district that's say 40% voting age population Black, 44% voting population Black, that's probably less compact, or against, do we draw a district that's 53% Hispanic citizen voting age population or 56% Hispanic voting age population, knowing that that District 3 is going to grow in population, and it's likely going to be primarily coming from the Latino population, knowing that as well, that population is much larger than what the CVAT percentage says it is, right? So these are kind of the very interesting and challenging tasks that you all are faced with right now. Only from that perspective. There's all these other things to consider, right? But obviously, given the conditions, this is a major focus.
Right. And do you see any major changes in the Asian population going forward?
Give me a second here. Let me pull up one of my Excel files. Yeah, right now with the projections, again, the projections are not as amazing as you would want, of course, nothing is, but sorry, there's just some wasp up here. It's nice in New Mexico, but sometimes you do have to interface with the natural environment a little bit. But the 2010 Asian population in the district is 20.4%, 20.5%, and the anticipated, according to these measures, raises that population to 21.85%. I don't have the margin of errors and things like that on this, so I can't kind of give you that at the moment. So that is population growth among the Asian population, but it's not overwhelming. And so there is the possibility that moving forward, that could be a district, that area that could become pushing towards 40% in that district to the north. I think I don't want to get that wrong, which one that is. I always mess that one up, in Pinole and Hercules. So that is possible that population is gonna grow and could become starting to move into that kind of VRA territory. But at the moment, that's looking more like a opportunity to elect district. And this district setup, it all meets that criteria for that population and that district. So that's something we can consider a little bit more. But the issue is, as you go and start moving populations around a little bit and pushing into other areas where it's potentially more mixed, you might throw off the kind of the more pressing VRA requirement of making sure that you draw a strong Latino Hispanic district in order to ensure that those people have, geez, that sounded bad, that the people living in that district and that community has an ability to elect candidate of choice in that context.
Got it. And there are pockets of Richmond that have some significant Asian population groups, correct, or San Pablo as well, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in particular, I think it would be, we would go and we would look at District 4 because that one's very split. That's a kind of the district that is no one racial or ethnic population predominates in that seat, and it is very challenging to kind of pick at that while holding the kind of trying to stay compact, and whilst not bumping into the other kind of enclave districts as well. So that's a kind of thing where, in my experience with that kind of scenario, you could raise that Asian number up a little bit, but you're probably not going to be able to get it a whole lot higher than it currently is.
I see. Okay. All right. Thanks. That's very helpful. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lazaretti. I yield to Chair Gordon to continue the meeting.
I do believe if there is no further business of the commission that we can adjourn our meeting. Let's just go through one more time and say, is there any other public comments or any comments at all this evening? I'm not seeing any. So at this point in time, our next meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. at, is it Kennedy High? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And at that point in time, we will be having our regularly scheduled meeting early in order to make sure that we do meet the Brown Act requirements for a resolution to continue to meet via teleconferencing and via Zoom. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for attending this evening. Our meeting is adjourned.